25 past 7. We've already dissected the Sydney GWS game on the back of our interview with Darcy Jones. Just before we get our teeth into tonight's fixture, what a beauty. The sold-out MCG between Bulldogs and Hawthorn. Who would have thunk it? Purcell and Thompson are through to the final of the US Tennis Open. They've won their double semi against Withrow and Le Mans. 6-4, 7-6. They play the winner of Aravallo and Pavic, Krawitz and Putz. So we'll keep an eye on that one as well. Alrighty. Tonight's fixture, Hayes, is an absolute ball burster. One change for both teams.
A little bit of rain around too. So the Bulldogs, 6 of their last 7 they've won. The Hawks, 8 of their last 10. So this is an absolute beauty. They did play earlier in the year, round 8. The Hawks got their season going. They won that by 7 points. The Bulldogs, we know they're a good stoppage team. They get the game played in their front half more than any other team. Number 1 from forward half stoppages and number 1 from scoring from those stoppages. So for them to play well, they need to win clearance and get it played in their front half. They've got the 3 key forward targets. Jamara Ugle-Hagen's kicked 43 goals. Norton, 32. Sam Darcy, 37. He's number 2 for contested marks in the competition. The young rising star there in Sam Darcy. The big difference in the Bulldogs team this year is their defensive profile. Since round 9, the Bulldogs are number 1 for conceding scores from intercept possessions. Their midfield defence used to be all duck, no dinner. This has changed, and they used to be heavily scored against if they didn't get it on their own terms. So, Hawks will get some chances to turn it over, but the Bulldogs have been a lot better at defending those situations. The Hawks, though, they're built a little bit different. Not as many big names, but their system is delivering higher scores. 5 of their last games, they've gone 170, 131, 112 and 124, and the other game was under 100. So that's enormous scoring potential. They're not reliant on any key forward, whilst Marvio Chol and Kelsha Deer have been important about their small forwards. So it's the tall forwards of the Bulldogs against the small forwards of the Hawthorn Football Club, and it's going to be a bit wet, a bit of rain around, so that could suit the small forwards in Dylan Moore, Nick Watson, Jack Ginnivan, Connor McDonald and Luke Bruce. Their work rate, their pressure and selflessness sets them apart and has been working really well for them as well. The Hawks in defence, because of the injuries they sustained early in the year, they are a bit smaller and they want to go quickly. They're number 1 for playing on. They run in numbers, lots of forward handball. It's a big job for Sicily and Frost, but if they can prevent Ugle-Hagen, Darcy and Norton from taking marks, then I think it's game on. Other concern for me, Goss, is the MCG for the Bulldogs. They don't play there very often. They played more games in Adelaide than the MCG this year. They're 4 of their last 6 they've lost at the MCG, so they don't play the ground very well. No Will Day, of course, hurts, but I think Meek and Newcombe, Warple, Eamon and Nash can still get it done. They're not big names, but I think they've been very effective in recent times, and their scores will show that.
Harms is in for the Dogs, which is an interesting choice. Arthur Jones goes out. Josh Ward back for Cam McKenzie. Cam McKenzie ruled out through injury. But interesting enough, there is talk that Vandermeer could be in doubt. And if Vandermeer is in doubt, do they go Riley West, who I think is very unlucky not to be in the team, and or get a recall for Arthur Jones?
I'd go to Riley West. I think the small forward pressure is going to be important. I also think Marvio Chol's got a big job to play in this game on Liam Jones as that interceptor. If he doesn't kick goals, he's got to make sure that ball comes to ground all the time. But given the conditions are like that, Riley West for me.
All righty. So last night, Hammer tipped the Cats. He tipped them on Monday, which was fantastic. And so did Ox, I think, yesterday tipped the Cats. We all got Port Adelaide wrong. I've gone for the Dogs tonight. I'm now not sold on it. Dogs for Scotty. Hammer's gone the Hawks. I've got a feeling by your summation, you're tipping Hawthorn.
I'm going to go Hawthorn. MCG, a little bit wet, rain around. The style of the Bulldogs, we know they're so fast moving and they're so skilled and clean. But I think the bit more workmanlike is the Hawthorn Football Club.
In a moment, we'll be chatting with Darcy Jones. The news out of GWS, Toby Bedford failed to get up for GWS.
Did he fail, or he did a fair bit of the training, I think, and got through, but they would have had to make 4 changes to the team, would you? He's been very good with his defensive efforts.
Yeah, he would have played on somebody.
Brent Daniels, Lockie Ash, Isaac Cumming come back in, McCartan, Papley, Heaney and McInerney for the Swans.
Taylor Adams goes out.
How would you feel?
Ouch.
He should have gone out a long time ago, in my opinion, when Luke Parker was coming back. Remember, they didn't play Luke Parker. They weren't prepared to make that decision mid-season. Then he went back to the VFL, copped that suspension. Luke Parker's too good not to be playing AFL football.
It's going to be a huge atmosphere, isn't it?
Who do you like in this one?
I do like Sydney. I just think They've been the best team all year. And I know they were very shaky, but I think they've recalibrated, and I think their ins are very handy.
Sydney have beaten them both times this season. It's a fourth final, amazing, between these two teams. When you think we still haven't had a Western Derby final, and I've been reminded that Fremantle haven't been there in recent times to make that happen, and West Coast in recent times. But given they've only been quite new into the competition, fourth final between the two teams. The Giants have had their measure in finals. We know the midfield for Sydney is strong. Heaney, Warner, Goulden. They're number one for scoring from stoppages and number one from scoring from their inside 50. So that midfield battle is going to be so important. But I think Tom Papley is the key. Without Tom Papley in that team, I think they've struggled. The SCG, he's averaged 2.6 goals per game this season. That is a big number. Sydney, very poor in first quarter, so the start's going to be important. There's question marks for me on Logan McDonald, Joel Amati and Hayden McLean kicking a winning score against Sam Taylor, Jack Buckley and also Harry Himmelberg. So that puts more pressure on the small forwards and Tom Papley. They're number one defensively in the competition, the GWS Giants, built around those three guys. James Jordan, I think he's going to have an important role, expecting to try and nullify Lockie Whitfield. And as I said, Jesse Hogan needs some help for the Giants. Recently, the Giants are ranked 17, so the last 4 or 5 rounds from one-on-ones in their attack. So Toby Green needs lift. Aaron Cadman, Brent Daniels back into the team. He could be that X factor. 3 goals he kicked against Fremantle, was one of the best. And it'll be about Sydney trying to slow down the Orange Tsunami. We know they're number one for forward handballs, so they get more meterage from their handballs than any other team. Green, Cornelio, Kelly, Whitfield, Green as well. Callahan's become an important player. Massive midfield battle. I think the Giants are better defensively, and I think the forward line can be the difference. For that reason, I'm going to go with the Giants. I think they can cause the upset here.
Oh, that's huge. Daniels Ashen coming in, which I know you have mentioned, but the outs are Thomas, Cal Brown and Nick Haynes, so I can get all those changes. Sydney one's an interesting one. Tom McCartan comes back in to shore up that defence. Papley, Heaney, superstar. McInerney comes straight back in. So Adams is gone. Cleary's his forward 50 pressure has been enormous. The young fella, he's going to be a good player. Aaron Francis goes out, doesn't surprise me, down back. Robbie Fox is unlucky because he's got great flexibility, can be back or forward or through mid as well. So he's one of the unlucky ones to go out, but there's always some unlucky stories in that. Our tips so far, Dogs for me, Dogs for Scotty, Hawks for Hammer and Hayes, and I'm starting to lean that way myself. I'll just stay off the Twitter and let everyone know about that later. Sydney for me.
GWS for me.
Yes, Sydney for Hammer, GWS for you and Scott. And let's get to the final round game of the finals, and that is Carlton heading up to the Gabba.
How do you get a read on Carlton with all the players they've had out in recent times? It's difficult. Brisbane, though, they won 8 of their last 9 against Carlton, but Carlton did beat them earlier this year. I think maybe the off-season played a part in that. A few injuries early in that game as well. Brisbane, we know, strong contested team. Often they win the inside 50 count, so they've won it 82% of the time this year. So it does translate when they win the clearance and contest part of the game. It does relate to inside 50s, then it comes down to their forwards. Lockie Neal, his finals record is becoming imposing. He's averaging 28 disposals and 8 clearance in his last 8 finals, and he believes he's in career best form, and I'm not going to argue with him. I think his back half of the season has been enormous. If Carlton have any chance, it has to be built on their midfield. We know Paddy Cripps is going to throw everything at them. Sam Walsh, he needs a monster. He hasn't been at his best this year. Big risk playing Adam Chera, but he's the other one that needs to come in and have a big influence. For Carlton, I think their only chance is their unpredictability, that they are different. They've had so many players out, hard to scout for the Brisbane Lions. But if you look at their forward line, I just can't see them kicking a winning score. No Curnow, no Owies. Harry Mackay has been out. Zach Williams has been out. Jack Martin's not playing. They just, to me, seem like a team that's going to struggle to kick a big enough score if they play the way they normally do. And they're pretty stagnant with their ball movement. I think with Sam Doherty coming back in, it's just a throw caution to the wind, unpredictable, and see what happens.
Yeah, so these are the changes. Jack Payne and Starcevic, 2 good ins for Brisbane, for Darragh Joyce and Harry Sharp, who go on to the emergency bench. Doherty, McGovern, Mackay, Williams, De Koning and Chera. That's some big talent names right there. Chincotta, unlucky. Owie suspended. And then the boys. And I've really liked what I've seen from Carroll, the boy from East Fremantle. Moya is...
Where's he next year?
Yeah, exactly right. And Moya, who I like, Binns and Lord. Bit of future right there for Carlton. Probably don't hold their spots if all those other ones were fit. But that's a lot of changes going into a final.
Absolutely. You can't expect those players to be at their best individually. And Brisbane, we know, coming into the finals, they've been one of the form teams in the competition. So they should be winning. I'm going with Brisbane.
Yeah, I think Brisbane will win easy.
Hey, we had a text earlier from John. Would Humphreys be as good in another team's system, or does it rely on the team's development program? Well, he's only been there a short time, hasn't he, at the Geelong Football Club? It's the old debate, nature v nurture. Do you think if he was at West Coast or he's at Fremantle, he would have these sort of results so early in his career, Tim?
Again, it's how do you know? How do you know? I mean, he would be better than some of the players on the West Coast Eagles list.
I think system does play a part. I think Geelong have been a team.
See, I like Terrell Dewar, who came out of their system, out of the system too. I think he's going to be a player.
He showed some good signs.
He's
But they make them work, don't they, Geelong? In terms of, normally you sit there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Shannon Neal's been there a long time. He's starting to become a good player.
Question for you: Shannon Neal, does he hold his spot ahead of Tom Hawkins?
He does. He has to.
What?
He has to.
And what about the other
Tom
DeConning?
Hawkins was struggling before he got injured, and then he's been out for a long period of time.
Well, Guthrie's Guthrie's come back in, won't he? Cam Guthrie hasn't played a lot
he's
of
hardly
footy.
played all year. I don't think there'll be many changes. Because Tom Stewart's got to come back in.
For
All
Zach
of a
Tui.
sudden, it becomes or Osen Mullen.
Oh
could be
yeah, he
the
did
other
a
one.
knee too. He fell awkwardly. Yeah, you're a good point.
But I'd stick with Shannon Neal. 9 marks last night, 2 goals. He hasn't done a lot wrong.
No, he has not done a lot.
I get the
wrong.
sentiment, but I think I'd stick with him.
All right, we've got 60 seconds. Let's just go all the way back to where we started the show. Can Ken Hinkley survive what we saw last night?
If he wins, he's got to win this one, at least get to a prelim final, but I just can't see this team regrouping. They're missing a couple of players. We know that. We'll see what happens with Butters, but if they have another performance where they lose by a fair margin, they could have lost by 100 points last night. They could have lost by 100 points. I think it was flattering in the end.
Set
They were
shot
just
too
not
long.
in it. So much on the line for them. Yeah, I think there'll be movement. I'm going to predict they lose that game, and that would probably spell the end for Ken Hinkley.